We're having the explosive plays gone for the Miami Dolphins, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter. We're exploring what the tape tells us here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami, and the NFL Draft Lead for the 33rd team. I want to thank all of our everydayers who tune in because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today on the show, we're looking at the offense and explicitly to the offense. Where are the explosive plays? Everybody's wondering about the pass plays and where the big plays are at and the chunk yardage that was such a staple of the team last year and what they were offensively. Well, it turns out the team wasn't lying to us throughout training camp when you ask guys like Tyreek and Alec Ingold, and they talk about the added focus on possessing the football and making sure that they have the opportunity to go extended periods of time holding on to the ball. They have opportunities to go extended periods of time without shooting themselves in the foot and cleaning up their operation and being able to play a different brand of football. We are seeing that manifested with how the Dolphins are playing NFL football in the year 2024. And the past month, the poo-pooers will look at, Arizona, Buffalo, Rams, Raiders, lost 2 of those games. It doesn't matter. But I think the larger area of focus, and this is not a results-oriented conversation, right? I want to be abundantly clear about that. We are in the midst of doing our season-long performance review of all of the elements around the Miami Dolphins. And when we get all of the information, we will have the conversations about what it looks like, what it needs to look like, what needs to be changed, so on and so forth. But what I can tell you is having another club in your bag is not a bad thing. And I think what is apparent when you turn on the film and you watch some of the areas to throw the football, teams are playing you a certain kind of way. Yes. Teams also, you could selectively take those big play shots down the field. You selectively get man coverage. It's usually too high. It's usually 2-man that you get when you get man coverage. You usually get vacancies and holes in zone coverage, but there's very tight window throws that are affiliated with it. This is a little bit different as far as how teams are playing. You from the top down, your play action passing. Maybe you get some movement on the linebackers, but it's not getting the same. Teams are a little bit more patient with how they're holding their landmarks against you. There's a lot of different things that feed into it. What I see when I watch the tape is I still see the same areas of the field that have some accessibility to them. It's just a matter of degree of difficulty of throw and the risk reward of that versus, in spite of having these degree of difficulty throws that are out there to create the explosive plays, you have non-explosive plays, and it allows you to play a different kind of way. It allows you to kind of limit how much your defense is out on the field. This was a critique. Remember last year it was too many quick scores. The Dolphins defense, it was losing time of possession. They were burning out late in the games. Well, how do you fix that? You fix that by holding on to the football and possessing it longer, and the Dolphins have done that. There will be a point in time where you're going to need explosive plays, and that's where I find some solace in the fact that when you do watch the tape, you do see, hey, those anticipation, intermediate throws between the numbers and the hashes, you could still find them at times. Not always, not as easily as you did last year, because teams are playing you differently. But if you get into a got-to-have-it situation, you can find it based on how you draw up a play. And that was one of the third down conversions Tua had against the Raiders in the second half. The Raiders lined up and played man. They lined up pre-snap to play middle of the field closed, so there's a high post safety, and everybody else was in man across the board. The Dolphins went in empty. And or they went in a, I believe they were an empty. And Tyreek Hill catches this deep in route at 18 yards of depth, despite the fact that the Raiders lining up in man coverage had an exotic coverage rotation to get to a cover 2 variation. And this includes a intermediate middle of the field player. It includes a hook player. It includes a high safety that's going to drive on the throw. It includes somebody in Tyreek's face that he's going to have to negotiate getting out into the route. And Tua puts it on his back shoulder for a leaping adjustment for Tyreek Hill and a fresh set of downs. So those opportunities intermediately do exist. It's just not the sole identifying factor. The Dolphins aren't needing to do it. And because teams are so invested in stopping it, they still have so much of this free access elsewhere across. And if teams adjust and they start playing you a little bit more flat on the second level to try to take that away, you know what I would imagine is probably going to come quickly after that? Some of those big posts and fades down the sideline that we were so used to seeing from the Dolphins last year. But as of right now, structurally, you're getting a little bit of a different look this season than what you did last year. And to assume that you can just, it reminds me of the time somebody asked James Franklin, the Penn State coach, because they weren't getting shots down the field. And they asked, do you ever just call a play and tell them to throw it up no matter what? And it's like, that's not a play that exists, right? Like, that's not a real thing. It's just, hey, we're going to call a shot play, throw it down the field no matter what. If they have 4 guys back there, they have 4 guys. If they're playing quarters, they're playing quarters, right? And I think you can look at the ground game too. I have the numbers up from True Media right now. Dolphins are in the top 10 in the NFL in 10-plus yard rushes. I think there's a different conversation to be had about the running game. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But I do think there's some potential rewards for this style of play for Miami beyond just the game script and game flow and time of possession. We're going to talk about some of those next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins, so make sure that you stick with us. Pre-alcohol probiotic drink by Z-Biotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings the day after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you will feel your best in the morning. Here's how to use it. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. Step 2, drink responsibly. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. You go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use code LockedOnNFL at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed by 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund you your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Football fans can tackle all of the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets in the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, feed live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page as where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with that $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Right now, Dolphins favored at home by 7 over the New England Patriots in Week 12, as the Dolphins look to continue the momentum that they have managed to build for themselves over the course of the past couple of weeks. I like -7. This is one of those ones where it may end up fluctuating between 7 and 7.5, just like the Raiders game did. So if you like Dolphins by a touchdown in this game, don't wait till it moves to 7.5. Get it now at Dolphins -7 at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I put this together as a part of the film review that I did for Touchdown Miami on Substack. We looked at the entire offensive performance and the all 22 of it. Did the grading of all the players on every play, but also did some stuff with the film for that piece. And I kind of came to the realization that you think about the snap utilization that the Dolphins are on this year relative to the snap utilization from past years. The wide receiver usage for Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill is up, right? If you consider snaps taken this season, Tyreek Hill is snapping 80.06% of snaps. Jaylen Waddle is snapping 79.76% of snaps. So they're both on the field 4 out of every 5 plays. You go back to 2023, and from a percentage of plays perspective, and I understand like the guys missed some time, right? They missed a couple of games. Tyreek Hill was on the field for 63% of Dolphins snaps in 2023, and Jaylen Waddle was on the field for 55% of Dolphins snaps in 2023. Tyreek Hill took 695 snaps all year last year. Tyreek Hill this year already is at 530. He's within like 160 snaps of his entire season total of snaps last year, and it is week 12. You've played through 10 games. So when you consider that, I think there's a couple of pieces that go into how you make this work. I think a part of that is adjusting the pre-snap motion of those players, and I think you've seen that this season. I think you've seen a little bit less of the wide receivers in the flying dead sprint before the snap types of motion. But then I also think about where Miami's perceived honey hole was as far as attacking coverages. And it's 12 to 18 or 15 to 20 yards downfield. And it's between the numbers and the hash on in-breaking routes, right? Miami hit one of them to Tyreek that get him down in the red zone early in the game against the Raiders. Those throws into the middle of the field for receivers that are not big-bodied receivers, that can take some wear and tear on your receivers. So I think one of the potential rewards of adjusting how frequently you are spamming that area of the field and going back to the well in that regard is you're limiting some of the big body shots that those guys are exposed to help compensate for the fact that they are playing 25, between 20 and 25% more snaps for you this season than what they did last year. That's a higher workload. That's a higher work volume. And how you compensate for that is you reduce the physical wear and tear of them taking big body shots in the middle of the field. How many times did Jaylen Waddle almost get his head taken off last year on those targets? Right, he got shook up against Tennessee, I believe, last year in 2023 on a route just like that. He got a concussion against the Patriots on a route that was in that general vicinity of the field and missed the Broncos game. So if this is a part of what your puzzle is going to look like to solve getting the guys that you're paying a combined average of $58 million per season to be on the field and stay on the field and take snaps that I think are a little bit more in line with their compensation and the expectations that come with that compensation, I'm cool with that. I mean, Jaylen Waddle, we did Tyreek Hill numbers. Jaylen Waddle's played 528 snaps this season. You go back to 2023, Jaylen Waddle played 611. So he's within 100 snaps of his entire snap total last season already. He played 10 games, right? So there's some trade-off there that I think you have to be more comfortable with. And some of that's because the skill group is deeper. Some of that, but some of that also means the wide receiver room is not necessarily deeper. You have Odell Beckham, who's not made a big impact for you, but the tight end room is deeper. The running back room is deeper. And what that allows you to do is go to more 12 and 21 and 22 and 13. But then that means those wide receivers that you have that you're paying, like you guys got to be on the field. So I think it's a subplot here that is a compelling piece of the puzzle. The other obvious game strategy, game flow rewards that exist here is controlling the pace of the game. It's very funny. Every time Miami tries to play Buffalo, They end up losing the game, right? But it always feels like Mike McDaniel is in a race to score 35 or a race to score 30. And that often leads to trading blows early in games, and then a mistake, and Buffalo capitalizes, and then you make another mistake trying to make up for the mistake, and they capitalize again, and you blink, and now you're down 2 scores. You know what they didn't do when they played Buffalo this past time? They were methodical. They were high percentage plays. They didn't panic. They took the game script as it came to them. And they got closer to scoring 30 points than they have every other time than when they actually scored 30 when they got a defensive touchdown. And they were in position to win the game if they could have got a stop and gotten off the field on a third down in the final minute of the game and forced a punt. It was the flow of a game that was a different kind of game, and it actually achieved the thing you try to achieve, but play a more frantic and frenetic style of play, and it blows up in your face. And that's what you have to do against these good teams. You have to limit the amount of time that a good quarterback can be on the field, and you do that by possessing the ball and by making those possessions count and having the opportunity to play football games that way is a potential catalyst for growth. So I think that's the game management and game theory benefit, in addition to the potential health and well-being of Waddle and Hill as high-volume snap takers for your offense. But what are the blockades of this working long-term as the Dolphins season continues to unfold? What is the potential threat that could derail this from being something that is sustainable all season long? We're going to look at that next here on Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. Listen up, renters. If you ever feel like you're stuck in the loop of rent payments and you're watching your money just vanish into thin air, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. And that's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points for your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. You can use points to jet off to a dream vacation, put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with over 500 plus airlines and 700,000 hotel properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. You can pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked as the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's join, Join, built, BILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. So how does this not be a good thing? I think this becomes not a good thing if you see the running game continue to struggle down the stretch, because I think there is some methodical. You don't want to get caught behind the sticks a bunch with this kind of approach, because you could selectively take your shots, and I think you're capable of taking your shots. But this world that you live in is best when you are on schedule offensively. I'll say this for the Dolphins, as far as the explosiveness of the running game, they have not had a 50-yard rush this season, but they have had 38 rushes of 10-plus yards. That ranks 9th in the NFL this season. And Pittsburgh is 1 run ahead of them, and Detroit and San Francisco are 2 runs ahead of them. So they're 2 10-yard runs away from being in the top 6 in the NFL in 10-yard runs. So they have found their opportunities here. Now, the negative plays, I think, are what is the biggest potential threat to this style of play. If I flip this around and I look at runs that have been at least a 1-yard loss for this season, no team has more negative runs on the year than the Miami Dolphins with 47. The Texans are the next closest team with 44, then the Bills at 43. Those are the only 3 teams in the NFL with 40-plus minus runs. That number has to get better, and that number has been compounded by the loss of Austin Jackson and the absence of Alec Ingold, but even then, it wasn't great this season. Compartmentalizing how much of that has come with backup quarterback play and teams teeing off on you is a little bit difficult to compartmentalize on the fly. There's a lot of layers to peel back with that. But if the run game regresses to a severe degree, and I still have reason to believe it's not as bad as it's been the last couple of weeks, because you are going to get Alec Ingold back. There is a potential tap-in move that you can make with the personnel change to get more juice in the run game at right tackle. There's things and buttons you can push, right? But I also look at some of the opponents that you have upcoming on the schedule, and the New England Patriots are a middle-of-the-road team as far as rush defense. They're 17th in the NFL in yards per attempt allowed, and they're in the bottom 12 in total yardage allowed running the football. The Green Bay Packers are also allowing 4.4 yards per attempt this season. Now, their game scripts have looked a little different. They've been able to get out in front of some more leads. They've obviously won more games, so their raw totals aren't as steep. The New York Jets, there's been 3 teams in the NFL that have seen more rush attempts against them this season. The Jets are 30th in the NFL in rushing touchdowns allowed. You have 2 games left against that opponent. The Houston Texans, who just played last night, they're giving up the highest yards per attempt average of the teams that we've looked at thus far, at 4.5 yards per carry. So that's a pretty decent clip of room that you can find on the ground. The Cleveland Browns are giving up 4.8. And they are 29th in the NFL in rushing touchdowns allowed. So they are giving up almost 5 yards per carry this season. The only opponent we haven't talked about is the San Francisco 49ers, who their numbers are strong. That's the big test, I think, running the football. They have not been a team that has been very porous, although the Kansas City Chiefs ran for 184 and the Arizona Cardinals ran for 169. That obviously... you have a quarterback like Kyler Murray and a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, that changes the math on the run game a little bit. Case in point, Kyler had 83 yards in the game that the Cardinals played against the 49ers. And then you go back and you look at the game that Kansas City had, and Patrick Mahomes in that game had 40 yards on 5 carries. So it kind of juices your numbers a little bit. That's the one opponent that you have that you look at and you say, I mean, if everything goes right, we may still struggle to run the ball. And in that world, if you're behind the chains more consistently, then you would say, hey, we need to be able to hit more explosive because we're probably not going to be as successful maintaining our drives. Well, the Dolphins have still managed to do that with the short passing game, and Mike McDaniel alluding to that being an extension of the run game over the last couple of weeks against the Rams and the Raiders. And the Rams are a good team. You know, they're back to 5-5. That's a quality win for the Dolphins. I know that is going to kind of get glossed over and brushed over. But that win, I think, makes you feel pretty good about the outlook of that's a Rams team that has beat the 49ers, right? And that's the Packers are a team that you look at from a schedule perspective, and they were in a 1-score game with the Rams. And I know there's not really a transitive property in the NFL, but you should feel like you're going to be in every game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're going to win every game because I can feel the eye rolls from some of you already. I'm not sitting here saying that. But what I am saying is there's room to be found. You get Alec Ingold back. Let's see what it looks like. If it's still not impactful and you need to be better on the right side of the offensive line, then you have the conversation. But there's at least moves internally that you can make to try to tap into some of that. And if none of that works, then I think maybe this methodical approach puts you in too much of a box. But you have explosive players that are capable of taking some shots and ramping up aggressiveness. And I think it's there based on the film. So that's going to do it for us here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I am Kyle Krabs. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Have a great rest of your day. We will be back again tomorrow.